I love Tuesdays because of this gentleman who is he's brilliant. He's an award-winning writer, Pulitzer Prize winner. He is someone who has written 3 books on Trump and the law. And when you read David Cay Johnston's books, which I really encourage you to do, and as I've suggested, even needle drop them, just crack them open anywhere, you get the sense that he is a mobster, Trump, and that he's really never been called to account. Except in maybe some ways that David can talk about that haven't really stuck. In any case, there's no better person to comment on what's going on today than this guy, David Cay Johnston, everybody. Hi, David.
Hello, Mark.
So you wrote a great piece in the Daily Beast, and I wonder if you could just give people a sense of, I'll link to it on my Twitter feed, of what that piece was about. And it's all about Bragg, and it's all about Trump, and what's wrapped up in much of what's happening today.
Well, a great deal of what you will hear if you turn on cable TV and other programs is you're hearing is just nonsense. I don't know how else to describe it. I just came back from lunch and on Fox News heard all the following things. Jonathan Turley, a lawyer, saying that Alvin Bragg ran for office saying he was going to get Trump. No, that wasn't him. That was Letitia James. Apparently, all black prosecutors look alike to Jonathan Turley. A host on the news, this was actually on the way driving to lunch, said, well, you know, New York is this completely crime-ridden city. Lowest crime rate of any major city in the United States. And then another lawyer whose name I didn't catch when I was driving home saying, well, this charge never should have been brought because there's no case here. They haven't even seen the indictment yet. And so the Daily Beast piece was, if I remember, I mean, so much has been going on. I apologize, Mark. I've been doing European TV and radio and getting up in the middle of the night for it and whatnot.
I have to be the most popular kid at the dance right now. I do concede that, yes.
But what I tried to lay out is here's what's going to happen going forward here. In the short run, Trump gets a bump in polls and recognition. That's to be expected. I do not believe it will last. Secondly, he's not going to be able to pull off a coup or an insurrection with a mob because revolutions are started by educated people. It's not Donald. With ideological knowledge and organizational skill, that's not Donald, and are then run by young men, mostly in their teens and 20s, who conclude that the known future, the current conditions, are so incredibly awful that a completely unknown future has to be better. It can't be worse. That's simply not America today. And the people arrested on January 6th, those were the fathers of those people. Most of those people were in their 30s, 40s, 50s who attacked the Capitol. And as they are being identified, arrested, indicted, and when convicted, sentenced in many cases to fairly long prison terms, more than 5 years in some cases, that means they're going to lose their job, they're going to lose their house, they may lose their family. There are a lot of people who will do that for Donald Trump. Now, there will be blood. There are going to be individuals who are going to commit acts of violence in response to Donald's repeated calls to violence. But you're not going to see a crowd, and you haven't seen one today in New York City that is attacking the police, trying to break into the courthouse, trying to stop the proceedings. And what's really happening here is that Donald Trump's influence is shriveling towards impotence.
Wow. Well, you've chronicled, as I was saying, so many of the ways that he's done business, and he's done business, I'd say, based on your books, really, as a mobster kind of. You know, he had Cohen was they call him this fixer. I love how everybody all of a sudden sort of understands what the term fixer means, but he was a henchman in kind of a hitman sort of way. Cohen writes about it in his book, about the fact that he was just there to threaten those who Trump owed money to, etc. So was this he's been able to skate for a long time doing business that way, right, David?
Yes. The difference between Donald and other mobsters is that Donald is the third generation head of a 4-generation white collar crime family. So the Trump Kushner family, and there are other families like this that get almost no attention in the news media. They cheat you through contracts, through failure to deliver goods, or taking goods without paying for them, through threats of litigation, occasionally tying you up in litigation to shrivel your ability to intimidate you from doing the action they don't want. And Donald's grandfather was a draft dodger from Germany who ran prostitutes and literally built a hotel for what were back in the day, the late 1800s, called sporting ladies, on land he didn't own. Built a hotel on land he didn't own for his bordello. His father ripped off, in today's money, about $40 million, more than $40 million from the taxpayers. And President Eisenhower, who is the Supreme Allied Commander in Europe, bore the terrible moral duty to send all those young American and Canadian and other men to their deaths on the beaches in France. When he found out what Fred Trump, Donald's father, was doing to cheat the taxpayers with money that was supposed to build subsidized housing for those sailors and GIs who survived the war, he threw a fit in the Oval Office, and understandably. And nothing happened to Fred Trump whatsoever. And Donald has spent his entire life lying, cheating, stealing. And there are two episodes hardly anybody seems to know about that are, like everything else I read about Trump, this is public record. His casinos had children with money to gamble who were plied with liquor, limousines, and hotel rooms. These were not like 18-year-olds who dolled up and passed for 21. 12, 13, and 14 years old. This is beyond belief, especially the Republicans who are complaining about grooming because someone reads a book that explains to them about how life works. Secondly, for a decade, Donald was entangled up to his eyeballs with a major international cocaine trafficker. And he did favors for this guy, Joe Wexelbaum, who lives in Santa Monica now, that make no sense whatsoever in a business terms. But he wrote a letter to a judge pleading for mercy for Joe. Joe served 18 months in behind bars. There were no bars actually in the prison he was held in. And the mules who just drove the drugs from Florida to Ohio, 20 years. And when the guy got out after his 18 months, he went back to work for Donald. And wrote the letter that was written to the judge, which is in my book, The Making of Donald Trump. Anybody who reads it should be able to see that what it says really is, hey, Joe, keep your mouth shut. Don't tell him what really went on, and I'll take care of you. And boy, did Donald take care of him. So, yeah, Donald has never been held accountable for anything. He's been fined from time to time. He's been officially criticized, but that's not accountability. That's just paying money. It's a cost of doing business.
Well, he'd love to write a check in this situation. So let's talk about this situation. You mentioned, those in the case that you were just talking about who do time, and then he essentially is in the shadows, not having to actually own whatever happened. In this case, if it is, and we haven't seen these indictments yet, but if it is a reflection of this hush money that's paid, and then there's an other hush money case, right, David? The right. One with Pecker's catch and kill stuff.
Or Pecar's, he prefers apparently to be
called. Is that it's a Kim? It's Pecar, not Pecker. Kim was it became the subject of some ridicule here on the show the other day. Sure. Pecar. In any case, this might be a situation in which he will have to own it. I mean. He'll litigate it, right? There's no plea here.
Well, no, there's no plea here. I agree with you about that. Donald faces a real quandary, though. It is his nature to defer and delay. He could end up having to campaign while he's on trial. Of course, he's not required to sit in the courtroom when he's being tried, unless the judge orders it, which I think would be unlikely. On the other hand, because Donald believes the charges are illegitimate and the system is illegitimate, all the other things he said, he has the option under the speedy trial rules. He could go to trial in as little as 60 days. Even if he's convicted, if you believe Donald's line that, indicting me is going to take me back to the White House, well, convicting him then by his theory should get him even more votes. So it might be the smart play to say, try me now.
Yeah.
And by the way, let's assume that Donald Trump is indicted also in Georgia and by the federal government and convicted in all the cases and is sentenced to incarceration, which will probably be on some kind of military base because the Secret Service is required by law to protect him. He can actually serve as president of the United States from prison. There is nothing to prevent him from doing that. So people who go thinking to themselves, I don't need to worry about this in 2024, Trump isn't going to win. No, you haven't thought this through. It really matters that you turn out and vote in the primaries and the general election. And being in California, where it's common to switch parties to vote for the, a person in the other party you'd prefer to have your party run against, you need to pay serious attention to this. We literally could legally have a president of the United States who is an incarcerated felon because the Constitution allows that.
Now, I do want to, and this is, thank you, Eric, for mentioning this, because I want to, in the other cases that are stacking up, I promised the audience I would ask you about sort of there's this sort of Damocles that's hung over Trump for so long, and it's associated with these other legal cases. I mentioned the Pakar case and the Karen McDougal case, but here, him personally going through top secret docs to withhold, possibly picking out ones concerning Milley for blackmail or worse. This is something I had mentioned and talked about the other day, but I wonder if you could speak to the legal stickiness of the documents case, the J6 case, and the Georgia case, all of which are stacking up like flights over SFO right now.
All right. So in this case today, when the indictment should be sealed any moment now, you're going to see that it is not a single thread running from Donald Trump's bank account through Michael Cohen to Stormy Daniels or Karen McDonald. You're going to see a fabric of crimes, multiple crimes that interweave with one another. And Alvin Bragg, knowing the pressure on him, would not have brought this case unless he was highly confident that a jury would convict. Trump's going to try and get the trial moved out of Manhattan. I would expect Judge Marchand, who is well known as someone who controls his courtroom. He's not Lance Ito, the spineless judge in the O.J. Simpson
O.J. trial. He won't give in to the circus, is what you're saying.
Yes. I would expect he would deny that and say, look, everywhere in the country, everybody knows about this. So, no, we're going to try this right here. But Trump's going to do everything he can to make a noise about that. That's why Fox News today was spreading these lies about New York's the most crime-ridden city in America and nonsense like that. The Fani Willis case, which has just been reported, may be presented for indictment to the grand jury next week or the week after. That's the effort to overturn the Georgia election. Fani Willis is not going to ask for a true bill from the grand jury unless she is highly confident of the same thing. And apparently there are multiple tape recordings, not just the one we've heard of Donald Trump pressuring Brad Raffensperger to fabricate and come up somehow with 11,800 votes. The federal case, there may actually be two cases. It's some things are emerging in the court filings that suggest that Jack Smith, the very experienced, very aggressive, and very thorough federal special prosecutor, one would be the Mar-a-Lago documents and the other would be the insurrection. So let me just deal with the Mar-a-Lago documents. In this case, Donald Trump stole documents. He keeps saying, I had a right to take them. No, he did not. He's a private citizen. He leaves. He does not have any right. Secondly, repeatedly, he lied and denied. He had his lawyers lie and deny. Now, the lawyers have been brought in to testify, and we don't know what they said, but the only thing that would save them from being indicted is if they say, listen, Trump insisted that I write this, and he said it was true, and I believed him, which would hurt Trump and give them exculpating material for themselves. So, these are very serious matters. And there are a whole lot of people in this country who seem to have forgotten that one of the best things about America, flawed as it is that we actually have an independent judiciary and we have a system for trying people. We don't have secret trials. We don't try people on bogus charges. You've got to prove beyond a reasonable doubt to 12 men and women that you've got a case. And the prosecutors bringing this case are fully aware of the history on their shoulders. So they've been very thorough. Jack Smith has ordered the under oath interview of every single employee at Mar-a-Lago.
Mar-a-Lago. Yeah.
Because they don't want to have some chambermaid show up at trial who goes, "Oh no, I put these away in someplace, and of course under the table she may have been paid a lot of money." They're making sure nothing like that happens. Jack Smith is being very thorough. By the way, there's no violence going on in Manhattan right now, Mark. Donald Trump is right now in the courthouse. He should be arraigned momentarily, and he called for death and destruction.
Yeah, there it is. It's all pretty calm.
Yeah, the cops are perfectly calm.
You think that that speaks to what you were saying before, which is that, he's kind of toothless a bit, although clearly he'll get the bump. He'll get a fundraising bump. He'll get a political bump. And I love that you talk about the documents case, because even if he were to say, "Look, I just didn't know. I thought this stuff was mine, and I wasn't briefed sufficiently to know," whatever it might be. I mean, the active obstruction of the post-subpoena attempt to get the documents, I think that's the real distinction there, right, David?
Absolutely. National security document cases rest on your behavior. I mean, I have some national security documents in my house, not many, but a few. Government doesn't care, and they're not going to come after me. But in Donald's case, the lying and denying is the problem. And after the government knew he had taken records, he continued this lying and denying business. And by the way, the fundraising you mentioned, Donald apparently raised $4 million since last Thursday. $4 million, a lot of money to you and me, but in the world of campaign fundraising, bupkis. Not big. It's just bupkis. It's not big money at all.
What's that, Kim? You had something for David?
I just wanted to ask about media coverage. Looking at something like this, the CNN.com page, Trump under arrest, and all the big news-making headlines. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the media coverage of what's happening and where people should look, and, kind of the different spin that agencies are putting on this.
And the last to that, David, tell me what Trump doesn't like about the media coverage, because it seems to me that he drinks in the circus.
Well, let me just start this by saying I have written press criticism for a half century. I'm the only journalist in American history who caused a broadcast chain, the second most profitable one in America, Gross Telecasting, to go out of business after proving news manipulations and falsehoods. The politics reporters who get paid to cover the horse race still do not understand that Donald Trump is not a politician. He's a con artist. And they continue to cover him as if he was a politician who just has a different set of views. And they are overcovering him. There was on at least one of the cable news channels, they had live cameras waiting for Trump to get into his jet and then go down the taxiway. This is absurd, and we shouldn't be doing this. This is what happened in 2016. That doesn't mean we don't cover the story. Our job is to cover the news, but you don't put everything you know into your reports. You don't, everything you look into, and yet they're doing this. Why? It's cheap news. It's not that you get this bump in audience. The ad rates are already set for these places, and for newspapers, totally irrelevant to their operations. Newspapers service their existing advertisers and occasionally get new ones. So people don't misunderstand the economic model. It's cheap to cover this stuff.
Exactly.
And to cover it the way they're covering it. Peter Baker is the White House chief correspondent of the New York Times. He's a very sophisticated guy who's written a number of superb books and very good coverage. But he wrote a piece last week that I criticized him for among my friend in a group of retired New York Times employees and publicly, because his piece was about the arrest of Donald Trump raises questions about the Republic, and is the Republic going to survive? Not one word along these lines, which would be the classic balancing act. Perhaps the indictment of Donald Trump will result in the reviving of American democracy and the renewing of it by moving us further along the never fulfilled but still out there goal of equal justice for all. And Donald Trump just got, a velvet glove Cadillac arrest. Cops didn't slam him on the ground. They didn't tell him to put his hands on the hood of a car that's hot with the engine running. They didn't handcuff him. They didn't mugshot him. He's getting special treatment in this. So the idea that, he's being treated specially, that I can understand because of the circumstances. The cops shouldn't be doing the other stuff. They should all be handled more like Donald Trump is being handled today. But seriously, journalists need to focus on that Donald Trump is not a politician. And they need to fact check him when he says, I love America. I think the record is overwhelming. Donald Trump hates America. He only cares about Donald Trump. And when his son Eric says $200 million is being spent today by Eric Adams by ordering the New York police to all be out on overtime and in uniform. Well, first of all, Eric Adams can't issue any order like that. He's not in charge of the police. And secondly, they're all on the payroll anyway, except the people called in for the weekend. And there's no $20 million. Come on, this is absurd. But it's like the lie that Obama spent $200 million a day to go to India.
Yeah, right. No, these facts come out of their rear. I know we only have another minute or so. You have yet another interview to do today. You're very, very busy.
Here in Europe, it's going crazy.
Is there any part of the media circus, though, that hurts Trump, David, in your judgment? It seems to me that he drinks it all in.
No, I mean, I think, unfortunately, we're very much into silos. People who read or watch the stuff that supports Trump are going to support him, and they're not going to hear the news. Otherwise, the comedy guy on TV, Jason, I was on his show, Clapper, Jason?
Jordan Clapper, yeah.
Jordan Clapper. I was on his show once. He has this brilliant shtick where he goes out and interviews Trump people, and you realize here's something that, you and I and this audience would think, well, everybody knows that, right? No, they have no idea whatsoever because they only listen to Fox or Breitbart. And what we're seeing with Fox is a whole new journalism model. It's not the model of manipulating people by what you tell them the way Hearst did back at the turn of the last century. It's the model of we're lying through our teeth. We know we're lying through our teeth, and we don't care because it makes our audience happy. And that we've never seen that model. We've seen lots of models of shading things, having particular viewpoints, maybe being mendacious, but not a model where we have no regard for what the truth is because our audience is so stupid, they don't know any better.
Does he want cameras in that court even if he's not there or not?
Oh, Donald wants cameras in that court, and he's happy.
Even if he's not there?
Yes.
Okay.
And he's going to, it'll be interesting to see tonight if the broadcast networks, not cable, but ABC, NBC, and CBS, break into their regularly scheduled program to run Donald Trump's press conference. I hope they don't. They should cover it. It should be on the nightly news tomorrow night on Wednesday with the appropriate snippets. But if they break into their coverage tonight, people should be really, really worried that Donald Trump, once again, has the upper hand and is manipulated, using his con artist skills. He's the greatest con artist in the history of the world.
And here he comes out of the court, and I'll let you, as he does, leave. David, I'll let you go to your next. I will.
Take care.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.